Post to wish everyone a really happy new year. The good health, given our present circumstances, abundance, because nobody can live without abundant resources, emotional and physical. Freedom, because our freedoms have been so at risk, freedoms which we've always taken for granted, for bodily sovereignty, what kind of medications we pump into our bodies, etc. These are at risk of being mandated against our will. And finally, to wish you all the thing which everybody absolutely needs, but nobody ever talks about, except it seems for young ladies. Love. I wish you all love. I must say that in the run-up to Christmas, I experienced a kind of human bonhomie, which I haven't been used to in London. People seem to have become kinder to each other, and that's a great sign. So I wish you love, freedom, health, and abundance in the new year. And when I think about what 2021 was like, it was characterized really in the main by great losses. I lost some dear friends. Kojuesa, Mick Jones, also known as Dede Jabba, a great sister friend of mine. Others who were icons, really, people I looked up to enormously, like Nat Amate Few, a great architect, raconteur, and in my opinion, a great social thinker. He certainly was inspirational to me when I was in my teens. All these people have passed, and many more. There was one more who died. That was a young South African girl who became a Facebook friend. Her name was Nomzamo Bosma. Now, Nomzamo was a black South African girl adopted by white South African parents. And you can see that in that setup, straight away, the conflicts were absolutely laid out. Black girl getting adopted by white parents, and siblings were going to be blonde, blue-eyed. Now, what Nomzamo told me was how to write. And there's a point to the story, because basically she started a chronicle of all the conflicts that she encountered, some resolved, some unresolved, and how she lived through them. And I found it so compelling. Nomzamo at the time when I connected with her, she was 18 or 19 years old. I found her courage, her bravery, and she was also a brilliant writer, by the way, so compelling that I learned a lot about how to communicate and how to connect with people. And the first thing I got out of Nomzamo's posts was, you've always got to tell your truth, because there is no greater drama than the reality of the life you are living now. But of course it takes courage. It's like soul bearing. You have to give up quite a lot of yourself in the public space, and you feel extremely vulnerable. But the purpose was that Nomzamo died really quite tragically. And of course they set up a Facebook page in her honor and this, and I couldn't even visit that page because every time I went there and read the other tributes, I'd be triggered so much. So R.I.P. Nomzamo, you were absolutely fantastic and played a big part in my life in communications. Now, why am I talking about Nomzamo? I'm talking about Nomzamo because I've also realized that when our traditional narratives are challenged and you start trying to understand what's going on, your sources of information and sources of learning become non-traditional. Look at me. Nomzamo could have been, if I'd started early enough, she could have been a grandchild of mine. You know, if I started late, she would have been my daughter. In fact, a lot of things about Nomzamo reminded me of my own daughter. And that probably also helped me kind of feel quite warmly towards her. But the point of the story is that it is from untraditional sources that you get untraditional perspectives. And it is the untraditional perspectives which enable you to start to think outside the box. Because to think the same way and act the same way and expect a novel solution is, I think somebody once said, a mark of lunacy. And bless this girl, she did so much, not only for me. There were hundreds of people who used to follow her posts on Facebook. So, this post is about building back better. What does it mean to build back better? This is going to be very important everywhere in the world in the year to come. And taking a leaf out of Nom Samo's book, the essence of building back better is building based on truth. One of the abiding memories and takeaways from the way this pandemic has been managed is how, at this late stage, I would say the autumn of my life, I have discovered that a lot of the bases on which our life was constructed was a crock of lies. So many falsehoods. It's almost as if we were all encouraged to support and maintain a narrative against our own interest, and on which the edifice of our economies, our politics, our societies have been built. This is so for all humanity. It is so for people here in Europe. For example, Britain's a class-stratified society. Many of my friends, owing to my background, are, I would say, middle or upper middle class and beyond. It is this group who I always believed enjoyed this thing called, the Brits call it noblesse oblige, it's actually French, noblesse oblige, i.e. the idea that to whom much is given, much is expected. It is this group that has signally been silent. The very people who I would have thought would have been the defenders of the British people in their hour of need, many of my friends, silent. And silent because they feared the loss of their privileges. That's just one example. Let's go to Africa. In Africa also, we have middle professional and political classes who, when the white folk left, when Kwame Nkrumah gave the country, I come from Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah helped us gain independence. Actually, another class of Ghanaians seemed to accede to positions of power. Nkrumah was kicked out because he was being inconvenient to the West, and the rest has been a matter of history. Again, those in whom the greatest resources of the country were invested. And it matters not whether your parents paid for the education or the state paid for the education. Somebody invested in those people with the idea that, again, following the principle of noblesse oblige, that to whom much is given, much is expected, that they would be those at the front of the line leading the charge to protect those who had fewer privileges. Again, looking across my continent of birth, I've been disappointed. And I've asked myself why. And the answer comes back very quickly. A lot of our ideas, our thoughts, our philosophies, our attitudes, our beliefs, and therefore our behaviors have not been based on the truth. They've been based on a narrative that we have imbibed as a result of the colonial experience. In Europe, the narratives that have been imbibed have been as the result of monarchies morphing into constitutional monarchies, morphing into democracies. But still, philosophies and narratives which were crafted by an elite few in their interest and to their advantage and against the welfare of those ordinary people in our societies. Doesn't matter where you are in the world, the same seems to be true. So here we are. If, as everybody's talking about, you see it on the back of every political leader, you know, build back better. Well, you don't build back better on the basis of a broken narrative based on lies. You build back better on the basis of people living in their truth, like that noble, great, fantastic young lady, Nomzamo Bosma, of blessed memory now, who told her story. And so my wish for us all in the year to come is that, you know what, we need to look, see and think through the narratives that we've been raised to hold to our chests and force ourselves to live by, because it is those narratives that are the very cause of the consequences we are experiencing now. The possibility of a medical tyranny, the loss of bodily sovereignty, which in and of itself is a threat to our democracies, the democracies that we thought were so great. And it can challenge Britain, America, France, Germany, the Western leaders who, by nature of world politics, have been the dominant force of the events running our planet, and certainly influencing disproportionately what goes on in Africa. If it's broken down there, it's time for Africans and it's time for people in the West to give their heads a shake, to think again, and to start going back to living in and on their truth. And the truth is really simple. Doesn't matter what accent I speak with. It doesn't matter what kingdom I come from. I decline the use of the word tribe. I find it a little bit diminishing and belittling, because, you know, I'm the product of two kingdoms, the Fanti kingdom and the Gardangwe kingdoms. So they're not tribes, not in my book anyway, but what do I know? And I digress. But the truths of everybody in the world need to be revisited. And once revisited, we can start to so-called build back better. Meaning building back better from the lies, the false narratives that we have been all of us, raised to live by. And do you know what? If you don't know something and you make a mistake, there is no shame in saying, sorry, you know, I messed up. I just didn't know. And in the same breath, I think we ought to listen to younger people. I find myself watching their posts on Facebook and so on all the time. And they have one advantage over people of my generation. They haven't been in play long enough to be corrupted by this system. They are all still fresh enough to have a new perspective, a new attitude, a new approach to the problems that we confront. And that is why they are our treasure. And that is why you and I, if you're a person of, you know, a certain age like me, need to protect and support them to the greatest of our ability, not just try and grind them down and get them to become order takers and so on. And remember, you know, anybody who's got talented children will tell you this. People are talented, they think it's rather more hard work to parent them, because they're bright, they're smart, and they will ask questions. And if they ask questions, you need to step up to the plate and bat. So, building back better is all about living in our truth and shutting off those appalling false narratives we have been taught and encouraged to live by. My friends, Happy New Year. God bless you all, and I wish you health, freedom, abundance, and, as I said before, love.